Thanksgiving in Seattle always carries a certain weight. The sky was low and swollen with rain, pressing against the city like a bruise that refused to fade. Inside our house, warmth tried to compete with that gray heaviness. The oven had been on since morning. Butter and rosemary clung to the air. The dining room windows were fogged from heat and bodies and expectation. 12 guests, neighbors, 2 of Karen's colleagues, Emily's boyfriend, Dylan's investor friend who kept checking his watch. Even a distant cousin who always showed up when the table was full and the wine expensive. I stood at the head of that table, carving turkey I had paid for, in a house I legally owned, surrounded by people who saw me as an accessory. 8 years of marriage. 8 years of quiet transactions disguised as love. When I married Karen, I told myself I was stepping into something whole. She came with 2 children, grown, ambitious, sharp-edged. Emily, with her corporate smile and surgical precision in conversation. Dylan, brilliant and restless, always chasing the next pitch, the next investor, the next promise. They never asked me to replace their father. They simply replaced my position with his shadow. In the beginning, I tried to earn my place. I thought effort could compensate for blood. I thought consistency would eventually outweigh history. I thought if I showed up long enough, paid enough, endured enough, the word family would begin to include me without an asterisk. I was wrong. The first year, it was small things. Family group chats I wasn't part of. Vacations discussed at brunch before I'd even heard about them. Decisions about renovations in the house I funded that were presented to me as already finalized. Support, Karen would say with a gentle smile. You're our support. I wore that word like a badge at first. Support meant reliable, strong, necessary. I didn't realize it also meant replaceable. Dylan's business school acceptance letter came 2 years into our marriage. Boston, prestigious, expensive. Karen cried when he opened it. Emily filmed the moment for social media. They looked at me, not with gratitude, with expectation. I paid the tuition without hesitation. Wrote the first check with a kind of pride I hadn't felt in years. I told myself this is what fathers do. They build foundations others stand on. But at the celebratory dinner that followed, when someone asked about Dylan's family support system, Karen listed herself first, then mentioned Dylan's biological father, in spirit, then Emily, then said, almost as an afterthought, and of course my husband helps. Helps. I swallowed it. Chicago came next. An unpaid internship that would open doors. Doors always seemed to open when I signed something. Flights, apartment deposits, living expenses. I transferred the money quietly. No speeches. No conditions. Austin followed. Dylan's startup. A bold idea. A deck full of optimism and projected numbers that made investors nod cautiously. He needed a down payment for an apartment to establish residency. He needed liquidity to signal confidence. He needed stability. He needed me. I wired the funds. When he toasted the people who believed in him from the beginning, my name was not spoken. Instead, he said, "My mom has always been my rock." The room applauded. I smiled. I was becoming very good at smiling. Emily was different, colder, more precise. She never asked directly. She framed everything as opportunity. My MBA program could really use an international component. There's a conference in New York that would be incredible for networking. Everyone in my cohort upgraded their cars. Optics matter. Optics. That word stayed with me. To them, I was optics too. The stable, established husband. The financial backbone. The quiet benefactor who made their ambitions look effortless. But when family decisions were discussed, investments, holidays, even who would host Christmas, I was informed, not consulted. Your support, Karen would repeat. You don't have to carry the emotional weight. But I carried everything else. Thanksgiving that year felt different from the moment I woke up. There was a sharpness in the air beyond the rain. A clarity I hadn't allowed myself before. I had already met with Mark Reynolds twice that month. Already reviewed account structures. Already separated certain assets quietly. Already drafted an email that sat in my outbox like a loaded chamber. I didn't plan to use it that night, but I knew I might. Dinner began smoothly. Polite laughter. Wine poured generously. Stories about Boston and Austin and future expansions. Dylan spoke about a new funding round with the confidence of someone who has never experienced true loss. Emily watched him like an approving board member. Karen glowed. I carved. I served. I refilled glasses. Invisible. Indispensable. Then Emily stood. She tapped her glass with a fork. The high chime cut through conversation. I just want to say how proud we all are of Dylan, she began, smiling broadly. One son is a future CEO. Laughter. Applause. She shifted her weight slightly, tilted her head toward me. And the other is just Mom's husband. It was delivered with a smirk. Casual. Playful on the surface. But her eyes held something else. Assessment. Testing. The table reacted in fragments. A few nervous laughs. Someone muttered, "Oh wow." Dylan didn't look surprised. He looked entertained. Karen raised her glass again. To brilliance, she said warmly. And to family. Family. The word echoed strangely in my chest. I felt heat rise, not explosive anger, but something slower, something heavier, a realization settling like concrete. I had funded Boston, Chicago, Austin, the vacations to Maui where I carried luggage while they walked ahead, the ski trips where I booked the chalet but wasn't in the group photo, the birthdays, the conferences, the rent, the investments. And still, in the narrative of their lives, I was a footnote. Just Mom's husband, not partner, not father, not architect of their comfort. Support. I stood up. Calmly. I placed my glass on the table with deliberate care. The crystal touched the wood softly, but in the silence it sounded final. Karen's eyes flicked toward me. A warning there. Don't escalate. I took out my phone, unlocked it, opened my email. The subject line stared back at me. Immediate financial separation and withdrawal of support. 3 days earlier, I had written it after overhearing Emily refer to me on the phone as our silent investor. Silent investor. I read the first line again. Effective immediately, I will be terminating all voluntary financial contributions to accounts, tuition payments, investments, and discretionary expenses related to non-dependent adults within this household. My thumb hovered. Emily was still smiling, waiting for a reaction. Dylan leaned back, amused. Guests shifted in their chairs. I pressed send. The email left my outbox and entered something irreversible. I looked up. I won't be funding anything further, I said evenly. Not tuition, not investments, not apartments, not vacations. The words didn't shake. For 8 years, I've paid for Boston, Chicago, Austin. I've financed choices I had no voice in. I've supported decisions I wasn't allowed to shape. And I've done it while being reminded I'm not family. The air felt thin. So from this moment on, I continued, I'll act accordingly. Emily's smile collapsed first. Dylan straightened. Karen whispered, What are you doing? Listening, I replied quietly. To what? She demanded. To what you've all been saying for years. No shouting. No theatrics. Just truth. 12 guests sat frozen. Forks suspended midair. The rain outside intensified, tapping against the glass like applause. I lowered myself back into my chair. Dinner resumed in fragments. Forced conversation. Clinking cutlery. The illusion of normalcy stitched together with discomfort. But something had shifted permanently. I watched Dylan laugh too loudly at a joke that wasn't funny. I watched Emily avoid my gaze. I watched Karen sip her wine with trembling fingers. And for the first time in 8 years, I felt something that resembled clarity. I hadn't embarrassed them. They had exposed themselves. Respect cannot be purchased. Gratitude cannot be forced. And family cannot be built on transactions alone. That night wasn't about anger. It was about alignment. They had defined me. I had simply accepted the definition and removed the funding. So tell me, when you realize you are valued only as a wallet in your own home, do you keep paying for the privilege of being diminished? Or do you finally close the account? The house was too quiet after the guests left. Not peaceful. Not relieved. Hollow. Plates sat half-cleared in the sink. Wine glasses with lipstick stains lined the counter like evidence. The scent of turkey and sage clung to the air, but underneath it lingered something metallic, the smell of something severed. Karen didn't speak to me at first. She moved mechanically, stacking dishes, avoiding my eyes. Dylan had retreated to the guest room, door shut hard enough to vibrate the hallway. Emily stayed seated at the table long after everyone else stood up, scrolling her phone with rigid fingers. I went upstairs without another word. I didn't slam doors. I didn't pace. I simply closed my office door and sat in the dark. 8 years. 8 years of believing silence was maturity. 8 years of interpreting disrespect as adjustment. 8 years of mistaking dependency for connection. I stared at the city lights through the window. Seattle's skyline shimmered in the rain, detached and indifferent. Somewhere downtown, deals were being signed. Contracts honored. Boundaries enforced. In my own house, I had allowed mine to dissolve. My phone vibrated. A notification preview flashed briefly before disappearing. Curiosity overrode restraint. I walked back downstairs quietly. The house was dim now, only the kitchen light left on. Emily's phone lay face up on the dining table, screen still glowing. I shouldn't have looked. I did. A message thread. Her name at the top. A contact labeled Sophie MBA. I didn't scroll at first. I just read the most recent line. He's just an investor in our lives. He pays and thinks that makes him family. Below it, the photo from dinner. Emily holding her glass. Dylan smirking. Me in the background, mid-stand. Caption. Our sponsor added again. Sponsor. The word tightened around my chest. I scrolled further. He's sensitive lately. Might tighten the leash. Don't worry. He won't actually do anything. He likes feeling needed. Laughter emojis. I set the phone down slowly, as if it might explode. The humiliation at dinner had been public. This was different. This was intentional. Calculated. They didn't see me as stepfather. Not even as husband. I was capital. A funding source. An asset to be managed. I stood there in the quiet kitchen, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. For years I had told myself I was building something permanent. But permanence requires mutual respect. This was extraction. My phone buzzed again. An email confirmation. Mark Reynolds. Received. Will begin immediate review and initiate necessary protective actions. Protective actions. The phrase grounded me. I went back upstairs and opened my laptop. If they saw me as an investor, then I would audit the investment. I began reviewing accounts, transfers, automatic payments, joint accounts I had allowed Karen to manage without scrutiny. I told myself trust was strength. Now it felt like negligence. Scrolling through statements, something unfamiliar caught my eye. A loan notification. Large. Recent. My name listed as primary guarantor. I didn't remember authorizing it. I opened the document. Dylan's startup expansion funding. 6 figures. My signature. Forged. At first, I thought it was a clerical error. I checked the timestamp. 3 weeks ago. I was in Portland that week for work. I hadn't signed anything. My pulse slowed instead of quickened. A strange stillness settled in. I cross-referenced the email trail. There it was. A forwarded message from Karen to Dylan. He won't mind. It's temporary. We'll explain later. Temporary. Explain later. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was procedural. Systematic. My name leveraged without my consent. My credit used as collateral for ambitions I wasn't allowed to influence. I leaned back in my chair. The humiliation at dinner now felt almost trivial. This was not disrespect. This was manipulation. I closed my eyes and replayed the last month. Karen asking casually about my work schedule. Dylan mentioning minor paperwork. Emily insisting I relax more and not worry about details. Details. The details were my name on a legally binding loan. I called Mark. It was late, but he answered. I explained calmly. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, there was a brief silence. "That's fraud," he said evenly. The word landed without drama. "Fraud. Did Karen know?" he asked. "Yes." Another pause. "Then we proceed carefully. Freeze accounts. Preserve evidence. Do not confront them yet. Do not confront them yet." For 8 years, I had confronted nothing. Now, restraint was strategy. I ended the call and walked into the bedroom. Karen was sitting on the edge of the bed, still in her Thanksgiving dress. Her makeup had smudged slightly. She looked tired. "You embarrassed us," she said quietly. I studied her face. "Did you know about the loan?" I asked. Her eyes flickered just for a second. "That's not what tonight is about," she replied. "It is for me." Silence stretched between us. "It was temporary," she said finally. "Dylan needed momentum. Investors expect confidence. We were going to tell you. We, not him, not me. You forged my signature," I said. "I handled paperwork," she corrected, as if semantics could soften it. "You committed fraud." She stood abruptly. "Don't be dramatic. It's family. We support each other." Support. The word again. Used like justification. "You didn't ask," I said. "You would have said no." The honesty stunned me more than the admission. "So you decided for me." "For us," she insisted. There it was. The core truth. I was never consulted because my consent was inconvenient. "You've been withdrawing for months," she continued defensively. "Acting distant. We thought you were pulling away. Dylan's expansion couldn't wait for your mood swings." Mood swings. I almost laughed. "I funded Boston," I said quietly. "Chicago, Austin, vacations, Emily's programs, everything. And when I hesitate once, I'm unstable." Karen's voice hardened. "You're not his real father. You don't understand what it takes to secure his future." The sentence hung between us like a blade. Not his real father. There it was again. Blood as authority. Money as obligation. No rights. Only responsibility. I felt something inside me finally settle into place. Not anger. Clarity. "If I'm not his real father," I said slowly, "then why is my name on his debt?" She didn't answer, because there was no answer that didn't expose the truth. I walked back into my office, opened every joint account, transferred funds into protected holdings, initiated freezes, canceled automatic tuition payments, flagged the loan as fraudulent. Each click was deliberate, not emotional, administrative. If I was an investor, I was restructuring. Downstairs, I heard Dylan's door open. Low voices, urgent whispers. They were starting to sense the shift. Good. A month ago, I would have panicked at the idea of conflict. Now I felt strangely steady, because this wasn't about pride. It was about identity. They had defined me as a wallet. They had leveraged my trust as collateral. They had mistaken patience for weakness. I closed the laptop. The house felt different now. Not hollow. Exposed. For 8 years, I had carried a family that never intended to carry me. And tonight, in the quiet after humiliation and discovery, I understood something brutal. They never expected me to audit the system. They thought I would keep paying. Tell me, when the people closest to you forge your name in the name of family, is silence still noble? Or is it complicity? I didn't sleep that night. Not because of guilt. Because of calculation. Seattle's rain kept sliding down the windows like time refusing to pause. Karen lay beside me, turned away, her breathing uneven. Once, she shifted as if to speak. She didn't. The house felt divided already. Not by walls. By awareness. At 6:12 a.m. Before anyone else woke up, I walked into my office and finalized what I had started. Accounts frozen. Joint investment portfolios dissolved. Automatic transfers to Dylan's Boston loan servicer canceled. Standing wire to Austin terminated. Emily's MBA tuition installment reversed before processing. Fraud dispute officially filed. Each confirmation email arrived with the same neutral tone. Transaction declined. Transfer cancelled. Account access restricted. The language was sterile. The consequences would not be. By mid-morning, the tremor began. Dylan's voice carried down the hallway first. What do you mean declined? A pause. No, run it again. Footsteps. Faster now. Emily emerged from the guest room, already dressed, already irritated. Why is my tuition portal locked? Karen knocked on my office door. I didn't say come in. She entered anyway. Her face was pale but not confused. She already knew. Did you freeze the accounts? She asked. Yes. Did you reverse the tuition payment? Yes. Her voice tightened. You're making this worse. No, I said calmly. I'm correcting it. Behind her, Dylan appeared, phone in hand, anger rising like steam. What did you do? He demanded. I turned in my chair slowly. I removed my name from obligations I never consented to. You can't just pull funding in the middle of a quarter, he snapped. Investors need stability. I'm not your investor. He stared at me as if I had insulted him. You've always supported this, he argued. Support requires trust, I replied. You forged my signature. Silence. Not denial. Silence. Karen stepped in quickly. It was temporary. We were protecting momentum. You were protecting optics, I said. At my expense. Dylan's jaw tightened. This is about Thanksgiving? You're tanking everything because Emily made a joke? It almost amused me. They still thought this was emotional. This wasn't about a joke. It was about architecture. I'm not tanking anything, I said evenly. I'm stepping out. Emily's voice cut in from the hallway. My university just emailed. They're saying payment default may result in registration suspension. Her tone wasn't apologetic. It was annoyed, as if I had missed a deadline. Karen turned to me again, softer now. Please, don't do this publicly. Let's fix it quietly. Quiet. That word had defined my entire marriage. Quiet funding. Quiet humiliation. Quiet manipulation. No, I said. Dylan stepped closer. You're overreacting. I stood. No, I said again, more firmly. I'm responding proportionally. He laughed bitterly. You think you're teaching us a lesson? No, I replied. I'm ending one. His phone rang. He looked at the screen. His face shifted. Investor. He stepped out to answer. I could hear fragments. Yes, we're restructuring. No, it's temporary liquidity. I'll send documentation. Documentation. The forged loan. The one now under investigation. Within 48 hours, the ripple widened. The bank flagged the disputed loan. Dylan's startup account was temporarily frozen pending verification. Investors requested clarification. Emily's tuition portal officially suspended her enrollment pending payment confirmation. Karen's tone changed. The anger dissolved into urgency. This is spiraling, she said that evening, pacing the kitchen. You're destroying everything we built. We built. I looked at her carefully. What exactly did I build, Karen? She didn't answer, because the truthful answer was simple. I built funding. They built narrative. By the end of the week, I had transferred the house into a trust solely under my name. Something I should have done years ago. Legally, it was already mine. Now it was structurally untouchable. I canceled shared credit cards, closed joint brokerage accounts, separated utilities. Not out of vengeance, out of clarity. The house grew colder. Conversations became tactical. Emily stopped speaking to me entirely. Dylan oscillated between fury and negotiation. Karen attempted diplomacy. You don't have to move out, she said one night. We can reset. We'll apologize. Apologize. For the joke. Not for the fraud. Not for the manipulation. Not for the years of reduction. I've already signed a lease in Portland, I told her. The words landed heavier than anything before. She stared at me. You're leaving. Yes. When? Next week. The silence that followed wasn't loud. It was stunned. Dylan overheard. You can't just abandon us, he said flatly. I met his eyes. Watch me. Within days, investors formally paused funding pending resolution of the disputed guarantor issue. Emily's MBA program placed her status on academic hold. Karen began calling mutual friends. "What happened to him?" she asked them, as if I had vanished, as if the shift were spontaneous. But the truth was painfully simple. I stopped being their financial safety net. The day I moved out, I didn't announce it. A small rental in Portland. Modest. Clean. Mine. I packed deliberately. No shouting. No scenes. Just boxes. Karen stood in the doorway of the bedroom as I closed my suitcase. "You're really doing this?" she said quietly. "Yes. You're punishing us." "No," I replied. "I'm protecting myself." Dylan didn't come downstairs to say goodbye. Emily remained in her room. Karen's last attempt was almost desperate. "We can fix this. Just reinstate the accounts. We'll handle the rest." Handle. I looked at her, truly looked at her, and realized something I should have understood years ago. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted restoration of funding. "I hope you find a way forward," I said, and I meant it, just not with my name underwriting it. A month later, the consequences matured. Dylan's startup lost its largest investor after failing to provide clean documentation. Emily deferred her MBA enrollment. Karen texted once. "Did you really shut everything down?" I didn't reply, because there was nothing left to explain. That Thanksgiving night, when Emily tried to humiliate me in front of 12 guests, I didn't stand out of anger. I stood out of recognition. Respect cannot be wired. Gratitude cannot be automated. And if to your family you are nothing more than liquidity, the strongest move isn't confrontation. It's withdrawal. So tell me, if you discovered you were valued only for your balance sheet, would you stay and negotiate? Or would you close the account and walk away for good? Portland was quieter than Seattle. Not just the streets. Not just the absence of that gray waterfront tension. The quiet was internal. Structural. Like a machine that had finally been powered down after years of grinding against itself. The apartment I rented was small. 1 bedroom. Minimal furniture. No photographs. No framed memories pretending permanence. The first night there, I sat on the floor with my back against the wall and listened to nothing. No slammed doors. No negotiations disguised as conversations. No careful positioning of words to avoid conflict. Just silence. It should have felt lonely, felt honest. In the weeks that followed, the fallout unfolded exactly as I knew it would. Not because I wished for it, because systems collapse when their hidden support is removed. Dylan tried to stabilize his startup without the disputed guarantor backing. Investors requested documentation, clean signatures, clear liability chains. What they found instead was uncertainty. Risk. Risk frightens capital. Funding paused, then partially withdrawn, then formally dissolved. He sent me one email. Subject line, "We need to talk." I didn't open it. Not because I was afraid of what it said. Because I already knew. He didn't need to talk to me. He needed access to me. Emily's MBA deferment became public within her professional circle. I heard about it through someone else, a mutual acquaintance who phrased it carefully. "Rough timing," he said. "Financial hiccups happen." Financial hiccups. I almost smiled. Karen's messages grew shorter over time. At first, they were defensive. "You've overcorrected. You're hurting people who depended on you." Then they became strategic. "Can we at least restructure payments temporarily? Maybe partial support until things stabilize?" And finally, they became personal. "I don't recognize you anymore." That one lingered, because the truth was simpler. She had never fully recognized me before. For 8 years, I had operated like infrastructure, invisible until absent, essential but unacknowledged, expected to function without complaint. When I stopped functioning, they called it betrayal. But what is betrayal? Is it withdrawing support that was never reciprocated? Or is it forging someone's name because you assume they'll tolerate it? One evening, about 6 weeks after Thanksgiving, Karen called instead of texting. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice sounded different, less sharp, less certain. "They're struggling," she said without greeting. I remained silent. "Dylan's looking for new investors. Emily's considering transferring programs. This isn't just about money anymore. It never was." "What do you want from me?" I asked quietly. A pause. "I want to understand why you couldn't just talk to us." I leaned back against the kitchen counter in my Portland apartment and closed my eyes. "I did talk," I said, "for 8 years. Every time I accepted being sidelined. Every time I funded decisions I wasn't allowed to influence. Every time I ignored the word support when it meant wallet. That was me talking." She inhaled slowly. "You blindsided us." "No," I replied. "I stopped absorbing impact." Silence stretched between us again. "You think we used you," she said carefully. "I know you did." Her breath caught. "It wasn't intentional." That almost broke me. Not the denial, the sincerity, because she believed it. In her mind, I had volunteered for the role. I had stepped into provider without demanding authority. I had accepted gratitude in fragments and never insisted on structure. From her perspective, I had changed the rules mid-game. From mine, I had finally written them down. "I never wanted to compete with their father," I said. "But I also refused to be a substitute credit line." "They're my children," she whispered. "And I was your husband." The line stayed suspended between us. Marriage requires alignment. Ours had required endurance. After we hung up, I walked outside. Portland's air was cold and sharp. Clean. No history in it. I realized something uncomfortable. Part of me had enjoyed being needed. The transfers. The solutions. The quiet heroism of fixing problems before they erupted. It gave me identity. When they reduced me to sponsor, it hurt because it was partially true. I had allowed my value to become transactional. I had mistaken provision for connection. And when connection never formed, I blamed them entirely. But the deeper truth was harder. I never demanded mutual respect early enough. I mistook patience for strength. I mistook tolerance for maturity. I mistook silence for dignity. It wasn't dignity. It was avoidance. The Thanksgiving humiliation wasn't the beginning. It was the unveiling. Emily didn't create the imbalance. She revealed it. Dylan didn't manipulate the system alone. He operated within one I never corrected. Karen didn't suddenly betray me. She continued a pattern I never disrupted. That doesn't excuse the fraud. It doesn't justify the manipulation. But it clarifies the architecture. I built a structure where I financed and they decided. And then I was shocked when they treated me accordingly. 3 months after I moved out, I received a formal letter from the bank. The forged loan had been voided pending legal resolution. Liability shifted. My credit restored. Clean. Procedural. Contained. The marriage, however, was not. Karen filed for separation quietly. No drama. No public blame. The paperwork was clinical. Irreconcilable differences. I signed it without contest. Because reconciliation requires shared understanding. We never had that. I think about Thanksgiving sometimes. The glass in Emily's hand. The smirk. The sentence. One son is a future CEO, and the other is just mom's husband. At the time, it felt like humiliation. Now, it feels like liberation. Because in that moment, I finally saw myself the way they did. And once you see that clearly, you can either beg to be redefined, or you can redefine yourself. I chose the latter. Was it harsh? Yes. Did it hurt them? Absolutely. But pain is not proof of injustice. Sometimes it's proof that dependency has been interrupted. I no longer fund their lives. They no longer define mine. The quiet in this apartment is not empty. It is earned. So tell me, if you discover that your role in a family is conditional on your financial output, if love is measured in transfers, if respect evaporates the moment money hesitates, do you keep paying for the illusion? Or do you walk away and let everyone learn what value really means? Would you have endured it longer? Or would you have left sooner?